talking about Senator Jackie Collins.
Yeah.
Now, normally, when I do a piece, I do it without a script, but this is something that I just wrote. This is a special piece for Senator Jackie. In the beginning, when we were born, our lives are an untold story, aren't they? What will evolve into who we become is at first a mystery and can be experienced as a great adventure as our lives unfold. It's all a matter of perspective. How could the parents of this child, who would lovingly be called Jackie, know as they looked into her infant eyes that she would one day become an Illinois state senator? But Senator Collins is not just this figure who we see here today. She is the sum total of all the people she has ever known, the pets or plants that she was taught to care for, the stories and songs she heard as a child, the laughter, the tears, and the wisdom of her elders, and of those who loved her, and of those who she loved. Her life, as it is with all of us, is a tapestry of color, texture, fiber, and light. Just as distinctive as the patterns in kente cloth from Ghana, or in this richly woven scarf from a friend of mine in Ethiopia, or in the syncopated rhythms of Africans born in America. Each of us contributes something distinctive to each other and to the world, yes? Now, part of Senator Collins' tapestry involves having been a student at St. Carthage Elementary School on 73rd and Yale. 73rd and Yale, in the hood. Okay. So, you saw, I was going to ask for the people from St. Carthage to stand up and be acknowledged, but you saw them taking the picture. But raise your hands anyway. Let's give them a good clap. All right. So, we undoubtedly attended St. Carthage at different periods, but most of us not too far apart from each other. But there was probably always something about that place that encouraged its children to stand up for justice. Now, although our senator was a grade or so ahead of me, I think maybe 2 or so, I remember her as someone who was often kind of serious, kind of no nonsense. Didn't goof off like a lot of the other kids, but she was also gentle and kind. And I never saw her mistreat anyone. In fact, I seem to recall times where she has stood up for others who were being mistreated, and did so with a firm sense of authority, even as a child. So it's no wonder that she went on to do great things. And she was a representative not only for African Americans, has been a representative not only for African Americans as a part of the Senate, or of people on the South Side. She has clearly been a legislator who has represented the interests of all people of the state of Illinois. To her credit, she has supported so many different efforts. She has initiated bills. Let me give you a little something here about her accomplishments. She was a former journalist and Emmy Award-nominated editor at CBS TV. Senator Collins has used her journalism experience and communication skills to support progressive agendas that seek to create economic and social welfare policies that reduce inequality, expand opportunities, and strengthen communities. As chairman of the Senate Financial Institutions Committee, Senator Collins has been leading the fight to stop mortgage foreclosures and predatory lending. Long before the national recession, she warned her colleagues and constituents about the dangers of predatory lending. Some of her other major legislative accomplishments include the Mortgage Rescue Fraud Act, the landmark Sudan Divestment Act to end atrocities and terrorism in the Sudan, and the Payday Loan Reform Act. For her work on regulating the payday loan industry, Senator Collins was the recipient of the 2005 Monsignor John Egan Campaign Leadership Award. Most recently, Senator Collins was honored with the Lifetime Award for Commitment to Financial Issues by Illinois State Treasurer Dan Rutherford. She has so many accomplishments. There are so many bills that she has initiated and hosted and pushed through and has been determined to make everybody see this needs to be done. So this has been a sister who has known how to stand up for justice. And it's interesting, one very significant thing that I remember from our experiences at St. Carthage, do you remember that the nuns organized some of the students to participate? You might have been gone by that time. Some of the students to participate in the march in Marquette Park when Dr. King came. And so I think I was probably in 7th or 8th grade, so you might have been gone by then. But that was an enormous situation. It was an enormous experience. It was one, but that was the spirit of St. Carthage. I remember when we first moved in the neighborhood in 1957, it was still predominantly Euro-American. And then over time, you know, white flight, and they started, you know, moving on. But many of the nuns really encouraged us to take care of each other and to look at issues that were affecting the entire community. And so it happened that Dr. King was coming to Chicago to host this march in Marquette Park against redlining. You know, that policy that said that, nah, y'all couldn't buy your houses over here. Right? Stay on your side of the line. There's ours over here. And so Dr. King said, y'all got to cut that stuff out. And so the nuns asked some of our parents if they could take us to join the march in Marquette Park. Can you imagine what that must have felt like as a child going through that? And so I remember that was actually the first day that I looked into the face of hate. I remember that morning waking up and being kind of excited, but also being a little bit scared. And I remember as I was putting on my uniform and everything, and I was making my lunch, and my mom couldn't walk, and so I was doing all my little preparations myself. And so when I was just about ready to leave, she said, "Okay, now Edith, have you packed up your lunch?" And I'm like, "Yes, ma'am." And she said, "Now do you have your extra spare money?" I'm, "Yes, ma'am." Now, make sure when you go there, you stay with those nuns, okay? And they'll protect you. "Yes, ma'am." Now make sure that you don't look in their eyes, because some of those people, they're not going to want you to be there. And they may be angry with you if you look them directly in their eyes. "Yes, ma'am." I didn't quite understand that one, but yes, ma'am. So I took my little lunch, and she gave me a hug, and she said, "Now be careful. I'll be praying for you." I said, "Yes, ma'am." And so I went on to school. Well, when I got to school, all the kids were there, okay? And the big bus that was going to take us to Marquette Park was there. And so everybody was just kind of chattering and what have you, and you could feel that kind of tension, but joy, and it was such a blend of experiences and emotions that we felt all at the same time. And so finally, it was time to board the bus. And so the nun said, "Okay, children, get on to the bus now." And so we started getting onto the bus, and when we got on there, everybody was just kind of, you know, lightly chatting and what have you, and we were okay until we started getting closer and closer to Marquette Park. And then suddenly we heard people shouting from out on the streets. And they were shouting angry things, and suddenly we weren't sure if we wanted to stay on the bus and maybe go back or to get off, but we knew that we had to get off. We knew there was a sense within us that this was something very important, and we were a part of it. It was our chance to stand up for justice. And so we slowly began to get off the bus. And as we were going towards the streets, there were people lining both sides of the streets, and they were screaming and yelling all kinds of terrible things and throwing their fists in the air and throwing bottles and rocks, and it was a terrible, terrible scene. I remember while we were there going up the street, there was a woman who was she was shorter than I was. A white woman came up to me, and my natural flow, if somebody comes up to me, I just look at them and smile and say hello. Well, when she came up to me that way and she looked at me in my face and I couldn't quite understand her expression, and I said hello. Well, she commenced to cussing at me and called me everything but a child of God. And there was no cursing in my house. If my dad cursed, we didn't hear him. And Mama wasn't having it. So this was a very, very totally foreign experience for me. And for a mom to be cursing, it just was not computing for me. And then a little boy who looked to be about 9 years old, who I took to be her son, he started cussing at me too. And she apparently approved of it. And so that was the first time that I looked into the face of hate. I didn't know what that looked like before, but I know now. And as we continued on in the march, I never did get a chance to get up close to Dr. King that day, but it was okay because I knew he was up there. I knew he was up there somewhere. Our drum major was up there somewhere. And I got a chance when I got home and saw the news on TV to see the things that I couldn't see from the streets. But that was a scary time, but it was a strengthening time too. And it was an experience that taught me that even as a child, it's important for us to teach our children that even as young as they are, there are ways that they too can stand up for justice. There are ways that they too can stand up for justice. And so a song that I wrote for a musical that I was in about a year ago, I wrote in honor of Rosa Parks, which was the role that I played at that time in that particular musical. So I want to sing that song for you now and dedicate it to Senator Collins and for all the women, even in this room, who at one point or another, my sister was part of the Freedom Riders, part of the Freedom Riders, and went to school in New Orleans, and I mean so many of us have done things one way or another to stand up for justice. So the song is called Stand Up. It's time to stand up for the right to sit down. It's time to stand up. No more fear will be around. Pull your shoulders back and dry your tears. We've taken this for too many years. I was never meant to be a slave. This is a life that no one gave to me but God. So it's time to stand up. No more sitting in the back of the bus. Stand up. For my children's sake, I'll raise quite a fuss. They will have a decent education, serving notice to this nation. Gonna have to turn this thing around. We're gonna have to stand our ground. To sit anywhere when I paid my due fare. To drink from any water fountain. To have decent work for equal pay. To have welcoming parks for my kids to play. To have justice in the courts of this land. To have the right to hold any hand. People to look at me and see how much I have a right to be all that I can. So it's time to stand up. And now, so now we're going to wrap up this piece before we ask Senator Collins to come and offer a few words to us. And before I introduce my friend, I want to introduce to Eugene Phoney for pulling this together.
She really did this wrong because the person that she's supposed to introduce is Marvita, the wife of the owner, Calvin. I'm sorry, but I just had to do it. I just had to do it. They're my peeps.
That's right. See, he did it wrong, because I was getting there.
All right. There's Marvita, and there,
that's right.
who's the other guy?
The other guy is a hood. No, who we lovingly call Dan, Mr. Lawrence Calvin Dantanyak. Dan, the owner, proprietor, the founder of the Woodshop Art Gallery. And I have to share with you that this brother and his wife, they have supported all the artists that I know in Chicago. And they have had their establishment for over 40 years now, and they have been mentors for so many people. One of our closest friends, William Kwaminapo, who lived with me for a while when he moved here to Chicago, initially invited by my sister, brought him over here, and Dan taught him everything he knows about acid-free paper and how to mat and frame and all those kinds of things. But come stop off in here from time to time. It's kind of like the watering hole. You're going to bump into somebody you know and engage in wonderful conversation, and then you're going to look at these pieces and say, wow, I didn't see that last time I was here. That already happened tonight. So come and support this establishment, because they have certainly been here to support us. Let's give them another. And now I want to introduce Mr. Theophilus Reed. And he is a wonderful musician, has performed with many other wonderful musicians, and has been a part of the great black music movement with members of the AACM, Mr. Theophilus Reed. So this is a song that was written by Gene and Doug Karn a long time ago. And they call it Naima, a timeless name for a timeless woman. And so this, send it to Jackie, is especially for you. Deep, deep as the night, spirit of starlight, inspiration of great beauty, and love at first sight. Queen of the ages, she transcends history's pages, from beginning to the end. What a woman she has been, exotic, rich and rare, makes love, comfort and care. Receiver of his seed, surely by thy lead, blessed woman, to the end. What a woman she has been. Exotic, rich and rare, none other to compare. Makes love, comfort, and care. Precious your neighbor. I've often told folk I call myself storyteller, but I don't call myself singer. But it's my sister's fault. She tricked me into singing it. Alexander's Steakhouse up in Michigan a long time ago. They'd be going to the place. And the guy, I'm sitting up there, the guy says, now we've got a very special treat for you tonight. And yet we've got the sister of a wonderful friend of ours. And I'm looking around like, where's she at? Her name is Edie Armstrong. And I was like, what? I was like, So, but then she got those puppy dog eyes, like, oh, please, you know. So, anyway, well, thank you all so much. And now at this time, I'd like to invite Senator Jackie Collins. But before she comes up, remember that this is a fundraiser. So please, you know, it takes a little piece of change to try to get things done. And so in whatever way you can, remember that it's important to stand up, whether it's writing a letter to your legislature, or submitting some money, or coming out and volunteering at one of the offices. Do something to stand up. We got a lot of forces against us trying to move us backwards in time. We can't let that happen. Senator Collins, please.